Well, now back to that emergency landing. 43 people walked away from the United Express regional jet after it stopped skidding along the runway.
Let's get right to Kris van Cleave, who's been tracking the story from Washington. Kris, what happened?
Well, Vlad and Elaine, the flight crew were unable to lower the left main landing gear. That's the landing gear underneath the wings on the left side. And because they weren't able to lower that landing gear, they had to land without it. And you can see here they're landing at runway 24 left at Los Angeles International Airport. The flight took off from Monterey, California early this morning. And the pilots, that actually is a very smooth belly landing, all things considered there. The pilots were able to use the gear that they do have to bring the plane down, and then it skidded along on its left wing. We understand that mechanics are now looking at that aircraft. There were 40 passengers on board this plane, 2 pilots and a flight attendant, so that's how you get your 43 people on board. It was a United Airlines Express flight, 5316. The company that owns the airplane is SkyWest, which is a regional airline that does business as United Express. Obviously, the plane had some kind of mechanical issue with the landing gear that kept that left main gear from coming down. But, I think you got to give a lot of credit to the pilots there who were able to maneuver that plane onto the ground safely. We understand it still had an hour's worth of fuel left. So that certainly brings a little bit of danger to the whole thing when you're skidding down a runway with fuel inside.
Hey, Kris, how much time did the air traffic control have before they realized that there was something up? Because generally, I've seen these belly landings done in the past where there's foam laid out onto the runway in anticipation of a belly landing. Don't see any of that here. Maybe there is some at the other end of the runway, but I'm just curious if the pilot realized this just as he was coming in, or did the authorities on the ground have a sense that this was what was happening with the plane?
I don't have that information. I know that there were emergency crews standing by nearby when they decided to come in. So, it's one of those situations. Also, you have the engines up on the body of the airplane there. So one of the things that you worry about when the plane comes in on its belly is it's going to shear the engines off. In this particular type of airplane, you don't have that concern.
But Kris, you said that the plane actually had about an hour's worth of fuel left, and that fuel is in the wings, right?
Typically, yeah, the fuel is in the wings. Jet fuel A is not terribly explosive. You have to sort of ignite it. So the risk here would be that if the engine was to come off, and that would cause a sparking, which would start the fire. As you can see, fire crews were on scene very quickly there if they were needed.
Yeah, and Kris, there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years of these regional charter jets that are, they fly under the banner of a well-known carrier, in this case United, but in fact are owned by another company, in this case SkyWest, as you reported, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And so it's interesting that that these things, that there have been more and more reports that are being done because they're not really regulated the same way that the larger carriers are. Is that correct?
Well, certainly when it comes to safety and airworthiness, the regulations are the same. The SkyWest has is licensed and similar to any other airline. So what they're going to look at, and Southwest has a pretty solid safety record as well. What they're going to look at here is why the gear didn't come down, when the plane was last inspected, when the hydraulics and things were last looked at, and try to determine why this happened. But the real remarkable thing here is you're faced with trying to balance an airplane on 2 sets of wheels when it normally needs 3, and they did that fairly remarkably here. Absolutely.
And I guess, Kris, to point out to viewers that, again, pointing out the fact that air travel is fairly safe. I mean, these pilots are extremely capable. They're very well trained. And even when you have something like this, a plane can land if it is missing a landing gear.
Yes, absolutely. The planes are designed to be fairly hardy in a circumstance like this, and certainly you hope that your wheels come down when you need to land, but it is a testament to how these things are built.
Absolutely. Kris van Cleave, thank you so much for your reporting.
Sure thing.